Let me give you some New Testament here. Are you ready for it? Are you ready for it? Okay. Hebrews chapter 3, verse 7 says, so as the Holy Spirit says, today, if you hear his voice, and I have prayed that in this service you would hear the voice of God in your mind and your heart. If you hear the voice of God, do not harden your hearts as you did in the rebellion during the time of testing in the wilderness, where your ancestors tested and tried me. By the way, I would submit to you that the testing and the trying isn't God was saying, hey, here's some good things. And they said, no, we want to do bad things. They were just really, truly, their testing came through the fact that they weren't trusting God. So God was saying, hey, I'm going to do this for you. And they didn't trust God to believe that for them. He says, and that is why I was angry with that generations. And I said, their hearts are always going astray and they have not known my ways. So I declared on oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest. And that actually means that I will remove my blessing and my presence in their life that produces rest. And he does that so you'll come back to it. Is everybody with me? Go to chapter 4 to just continue the thought in verse 1. Therefore, since the promise of entering his rest still stands. In other words, that's something that is still available to you. Let us be careful that none of you be found to have fallen short of it. In other words, if you're living your life right now and you're not experiencing, regardless of the chaos around you, you're not experiencing the peace and the rest of God on the inside, I'm trying to tell you something that you may not be in a trusting, a faithful relationship with God, or actually you're being disobedient to one of his principles. So if you feel the way, for we have also heard the good news proclaimed to us just as they did, but the message they heard was of no value to them because those who heard did not combine it with faith. I'll explain that to you in just a second. But now we who believe or who have faith enter into that rest. I'll teach you that in just a second. Jump down to verse 9, last passage. There remains, everybody say remains. In other words, it's still available to you. Then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters, in other words, you have to take the steps toward it. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works. They're not trusting their own efforts. They're not on those horses, right? You're not out there by yourself. Just as God did from his, let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest so that no one will perish by following their example of disobedience. So I want